Don't mess with America.
And welcome back. As life slowly gets back to normal across the country, churches and other houses of worship are starting to reopen slowly, but with major restrictions. Does it equate to religious discrimination? Let's talk about it more live right now with Father Robert Sirico from the Acton Institute. He's up late with me on the Final Five. Father, thank you very much for staying up with us here tonight. We know that there have been so many restrictions and regulations, and here in the D.C. area, we're starting to see some signs of life. In Virginia, some churches can reopen, but only outside. In D.C., it's 10 people a time. These are still very onerous restrictions for a lot of people of faith.
Well, they are. They're onerous restrictions for everybody. The real rub is when these restrictions are patently discriminatory. You have a very interesting case of one of the counties in Maryland that restricted, and if you read the legislation or the whatever it is, it said you couldn't eat in a church, and it was very specifically directed at Holy Communion. Now, you have restaurants open, of course, but they rescinded that, I should say. But point is that you see the mentality, the secularist prejudice that marginalizes the church that has been the first of the first responders. I mean, we've been in this business for eons, and this is not our first pandemic. And for them to treat us as though we don't know what we should be doing, that we don't care about people's safety. I mean, I'm sure there are some marginal religious fanatics, but for the most part, religious people are very concerned. We run hospitals. We invented the hospital. So to think that a church is going to be a more dangerous place than a tattoo parlor is a little strange to my mind.
There have been, looking at some of the complaints that have been filed against various officials, and you mentioned Maryland, the rationale some people have said is, yeah, we can open the big box stores, Lowe's and Walmart, but for a church, we can just encourage these houses of worship to put their services online.
Well, you can buy things from big box stores online too. Churches, especially right now, where everyone is kind of tense, they're discouraged. You've heard about all of the domestic abuse and the suicide rates. People need hope, and churches are places of hope. Whether you believe it or not, people do find hope and solace in the church. And so you would think that public officials would see this as an opportunity to help their communities rather than a non-essential service.
For the lawmakers, as we get ready to head to break here, for the lawmakers that have said this is a matter of public health, and we're seeing restrictions when it comes to serving communion, when it comes to assembling inside, and they're moving these services outside, what would your message be to those lawmakers as we move forward with this?
Begin to think a little more rationally. Stop being prejudiced. Realize that we care about our people, that we're going to take health precautions. In my church, we begin this weekend. We're taking all kinds of health precautions with sanitizing things and being very careful about how we distribute Holy Communion. So I would say, talk to your constituents who go to church, and maybe you should show up in church too.
That is a message for a lot of people, no doubt about that. Father Sirico, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Final Five back after this.